Good morning, everyone. My name is Brett Mitchell. I'm chairperson of the Elephant Reintegration Trust and a director of Wild Choices. Today, I'll provide some insight on the topic of rewilding captive elephants, restoring autonomy and reintegrating them back into wild ecosystems. I've been involved with captive elephants since 1996. For the first 18 years working in the tourism industry, and the last 10 years I've been rewilding elephants, conducting research and advocating for the end to captivity for elephants. I've always believed elephants belong in the wild, which led me to making a decision that the elephants I had the privilege of working with would roam wild again. It took several years to achieve this goal. Let's just say, without going into detail, it took a well-worded letter to a board of directors to jumpstart the process. The rewilding of these particular elephants was the catalyst to the founding of ERT, kicking off a journey that looks likely to continue for the foreseeable future. So what is rewilding? Rewilding has three main stages. Let's call them the three R's: rehabilitation, reintegration, rewilding. Rehabilitation is the treatment and care of an injured, orphaned, or sick elephant who requires veterinary care to be physically fit for the reintegration process and eventual rewilding. Reintegration is the process of humans disengaging intensive management of previously captive elephants, reinstating autonomy with full freedom of choice whilst correcting unwanted behaviors to allow for transitioning back into a completely wild system. Rewilding is the release of reintegrated elephants into a wild system without any interference by humans, in which the elephant has full autonomy. There is no set time frame for any of these stages. This is determined by the elephants. So why should we rewild? On a holistic level, elephants have never and will never thrive in captivity. They're simply not suited to a captive lifestyle. By rewilding elephants and affording them the freedom to live autonomously, we not only improve their individual well-being, but also contribute positively to the conservation of the species, something which captive elephants do not. My decision to rewild this first group was accelerated by watching the captive elephant industry, whilst far from perfect, was getting decidedly morbid in South Africa. Numerous accidents were occurring with elephant handlers losing their lives, as well as tourists getting injured. From 2004 up to 2013, wild elephants were being captured purely for commercial gain under the guise of saving elephants. This is a far cry from the truth, considering family units were being ripped apart, in some cases shot, to create supposed orphans. Coupled with this, I did not want anyone under my watch to become a statistic, and very simply, the elephants deserve their freedom. The practice of rewilding in South Africa has seen over 20 elephants reintegrated onto various reserves over the years. There are, however, still about 90 elephants remaining in captivity. I'll be sharing the reintegration and rewilding of two elephant groups. This first rewilding I did is very dear to me, as I've been with this group of elephants since 1996 and felt completely responsible for their future. To touch briefly on their history, the adults were captured as 2 to 4-year-olds back in 1988 during one of the numerous culling operations in Zimbabwe. In 1996, they entered the tourism industry doing elephant-back safaris near Victoria Falls. In 2002, they moved to the 500-hectare Letsatsing Game Park in South Africa, bordering the Pilanesberg National Park. These adult elephants had spent over 25 years in captivity. June 2014 saw the closure of Pilanesberg Elephant-back Safaris, the commercial operation. The first step was to find a reserve to rewild the elephants. I was investigating various options, but I knew where they needed to be rewilded, and that was at Kalahari Reserve. This, however, took numerous months of discussion to achieve the desired outcome, as these elephants would also be the founding population. Kama boasts over 90,000 hectares with virtually no tourism and conservation its priority, making it the perfect location. When I reflect back now, I realize how high I'd actually set the bar for this first rewilding, considering the reserve's remoteness and size. It was very challenging, but without a doubt the best place for the elephants. Frustratingly, the permitting process was painstakingly slow, with typical government bureaucracy taking over a year to finalize. With this delay, however, it allowed us to start working through various processes for the reintegration prior to translocation. With the commercial closure, the daily routine of the elephants changed along with certain management aspects. As the elephants were just feeding out in the park during the day, we created scenarios likely to occur with the elephants once rewilded, such as encounters with vehicles. In July 2015, I decided to leave them out at night on the game park to see what they would do. Food was available in their night enclosures and left open if they chose to come back during the night. As we already had the GPS collars available, we fitted them to the elephants, allowing us to monitor them via a laptop throughout the night for safety and security reasons. Due to the size of the park, the elephants were always only within a 10 to 15-minute walk of their stables, but chose to stay out, never once coming back to the stables. Each morning we would go and join them for the day. In August, finally all the necessary permits were issued and logistics finalized. We departed for Come-Up on the 9th of September 2015. We had built a 2-hectare holding boma as the night enclosure for the duration of the reintegration stage. This was placed to be able to access 4 waterholes which were within 5 to 10 kilometers from it. After some delays in the first week, we started exploring the reserve with the elephants. We would walk to one of the 4 water holes each day, sometimes straight there, letting the elephants drink before feeding in the vicinity before returning to the boma that evening. Other days, we would feed in the direction of the waterhole for the day. The elephants would drink late afternoon before returning to the boma. Interestingly, the elephants quickly showed preference to only 2 of the waterholes from which to drink. After a month, the elephants looked settled, so we decided to see what they would do if we left them out at night. Due to a complication with a collar that had caused a wound, we returned to the boma routine within a few days as the collar was removed to allow the wound to heal. In hindsight, the collar issue was turned into a positive. It allowed us to disengage even further from the elephants over the next couple of months. We reached a point where we were basically letting the elephants out every morning, monitoring them for the most part by vehicle during the day, and returning them to the boma in the evening. With the elephants ready for the rewilding stage, this was set to start on the 11th of December 2015. At sunrise on the day, the boma was simply opened, allowing all decisions to be made by the elephants. They would be treated as wild elephants, which meant going completely hands-off, only intervening should it be absolutely necessary. Watching these elephants regain their autonomy after nearly 30 years of captivity for the adults was extremely special to witness. It is not possible to describe the emotion that morning, sitting watching them walk out of the boma for what was the last time as captive elephants, starting their journey as wild elephants. The next time we saw them that day was coming to water at last light. Over the next 48 hours from their first drink as wild elephants again, the elephants covered about 40 kilometers feeding and exploring before moving back to water again. From here on out, it was about monitoring the elephants and redirecting any unwanted behaviors, such as engaging with vehicles, people, or buildings if they occurred. These behaviors were virtually non-existent, highlighting the need to disengage from the elephants slowly throughout the reintegration process. The ease at which they took to living as wild elephants, even though it was what I had expected, did not diminish how magical it was. 9 years on, Chiquenya, the adult cow, has become a phenomenal matriarch, along with becoming a grandmother. Chiquenya and her eldest daughter Tidimalo both calved in 2019, amazingly a week apart. Wedi, her second daughter, followed suit with her first calf in 2021. What makes these births so special is that each calf was wild conceived and wild born. From the onset, it was known we would need to introduce additional elephants to balance and improve the social structure on the reserve. In September 2020, we achieved the first introduction. This was a family unit of 6 elephants. I'd like to share an amazing scene that played out with the arrival of the herd. When arriving on the reserve in the early hours of the morning, Chiquenya and her family were approximately 6 kilometers away from the offloading ramp. We let the new herd settle down for about 30 minutes before opening the doors to disembark. This is always a good idea, as this makes for a calmer exit. They had started rumbling regularly in the truck. After exiting, elephants tend to move well away from the truck. This, though, did not happen. The herd only moved a few hundred meters away. We could hear them rumbling on and off for the next half hour or so. As it was dark, we left them in peace and monitored the collars for any movement. What happened over the next couple of hours was beautiful. Chiquenya, the rewilded matriarch, had already started moving towards the new arrivals when they were still in the truck. She covered about 5 kilometers before the new elephants started moving in her direction. They met about an hour later, a mere kilometer from the offloading ramp. Chiquenya promptly moved directly towards a waterhole, escorting the new herd to water. It is known that orphaned elephants and elephants from disrupted systems readily allow new elephants into their fold. Besides the matriarch of the new herd initially exploring the reserve on their own to find their bearings, they now pretty much move with the rewilded herd. In 2022, 3 additional bulls were introduced to improve the bull structure. This was crucial for the reintegrated bulls to form a fission-fusion system with the breeding herds, as well as normalizing their must cycles. The second reintegration I did was rewilding 10 elephants on Shambhala Game Reserve. This group comprised of 2 family units and an adult bull. To cover a bit of their story or history, the elephants were captured as youngsters during culling operations in the 1980s in Zimbabwe. In 2002, the elephants were acquired from a captive elephant facility in Zimbabwe and brought to South Africa. The 2 adult cows and the adult bull had spent over 20 years in captivity before this rewilding took place, having been used for elephant-back safaris for 12 years from 2004 to 2016. This rewilding was simpler, as there was no translocation, which would require a settling period at a new reserve. Also, even though there was more elephants, having only 3 adults simplified the monitoring, as the rest of the herd would remain with them. They only remained in their stable system for a 2-week period after the closure of the commercial operation before moving them to the boma in the center of the reserve. This reintegration followed a similar process to the first one, moving out onto the reserve daily to feed and explore, with the handling team disengaging more and more each day from the elephants. I had set up timelines for the various stages of this project. The elephants, however, clearly disagreed with my boma timeline. They made this abundantly clear by breaking the boma gate 2 nights in a row, making me move the rewilding stage up by about a month. So just like that, the boma stage was over, with the rewilding stage now set to start the very next day. The boma gate was left open the following morning, leaving the elephants to do all the decision making. After both groups were released from the boma gates were left open, with food left inside, in case the elephants felt more secure in returning to the bomas. What is very pertinent here is that neither of the elephant herds ever returned to their bomas at any point in time. So what is the take-home message from rewilding these elephants? Well, in 2025 we celebrate 10 years of freedom for the come-up elephants. This outcome simply confirms my belief that elephants will always choose freedom of choice when given the opportunity. These 2 rewildings clearly show that elephants will choose autonomy over captivity and human control. Sadly, this is a perceived safe option for these animals, which assumes that they prefer anthropogenic relationships. This is a flawed assumption. I believe any elephant from any background, given time, can be rewilded. Of course, possibly excluding individuals with physical injuries that could hamper them negatively living in the wild in their natural habitat. Saying this, however, we should give them the opportunity to make that choice. We severely underestimate, when given time, how an animal recovers when living in the natural habitat, having access to their correct diet, and how this combination promotes recovery. EOT has been monitoring various previously captive elephants who have been rewilded on various reserves across South Africa. All these elephants have reproduced and have formed social bonds with other wild elephants, proving that elephants can be rewilded. This has taught us that elephants are extremely flexible and can indeed adapt to wild environments. Unfortunately, with the 90 elephants remaining in captivity in South Africa, the rewilding road still has a long way to go. To attain our objective of ending captivity for elephants, the creation of our rewilding reserve, we need all the help we can get. In ending, rewilding these elephants would not have been possible without the dedicated handlers who trusted in me that this was the best option for the elephants. Thank you to Lungusani, Jala, Lovemore, Reason, Shadrick, John, Colin, William, Thompson, and Ishmael. Tanisha is integral to our research at ERT. We'll be elaborating on our research conducted on these rewilded elephants, sharing some of the key results we've obtained. Lastly, a huge thank you to PAWS for inviting me to speak. Thank you to everyone for listening.